Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
We're hunting. Even though it's the bye week, we're hunting, Jake Rowe. Welcome into the Georgia show. It's a fun time every time we do it. Middle of the week, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. You can set your watch by it. Jake, how's your bye week going?
It's going great, man. Just, 3 days down. Got to talk to Kirby last night. One day this week, and actually, to be honest with you, man, the longer I do this, the more I think that is plenty. Just getting to kind of get the coach and the players once a week. But, no game this weekend, so no weekend show for us. No, we may be back here on Sunday, but we definitely won't be here Saturday because there's no game to go before. And, excited to be at home this weekend with the family and, be home late this weekend with the family because after this weekend, 3 out of the next 4 are 2-day hotel stays for me. So not excited about that.
Yeah, we can kind of take a big picture look at the second half of the season. I think people would enjoy that. I think people would also enjoy subscribing to DawgsHQ on YouTube. Thanks to everybody tuning in. Tomahawk Dog, I'm glad you made it. I know it's been a rough couple of weeks for Braves country, but you're hanging in here. Mean Mug and Mutt, a regular as well. I love the avatar that Mean Mug and Mutt has. I don't know if that's a T-shirt or a flag or what it is, but it says "Hunker Down One Mo' Time." I like that hat that Uga's wearing. And, of course, Uncle Glenn Hartley beats everybody by 1 minute. So appreciate y'all, as always, every week.
You'll talk about setting your watch by something. Uncle Glenn Hartley.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt about that. Jake, I want to give the floor to you for a moment just to tee us up here. You spoke with Kirby. I really liked what we heard from Nolan Smith this week. I'm just curious about the storylines that are standing out to you as Georgia is preparing to handle its bye week business.
It's still all about injuries for me. And I know that I know that no news and no clarity, really on how things are going is kind of starting to, it bothers some. I've had some friends text me like, man, how long is AD Mitchell going to miss with an ankle injury? How long is it? Jalen Carter's had 2 different injuries, so that one kind of stands up a little bit. Smile Munden's on the mend. But the AD Mitchell thing is very, very, I don't know, it's weird to me. And, I still suspect that they're going to work really hard and they're going to try really hard to get him ready to play for Florida. I feel the same way about Jalen Carter, but it's really all about those injuries. I think Georgia can go toe-to-toe and, take care of the rest of its schedule without those guys. I think it can. I really do. I think Georgia has a much better shot with those guys, though, and I know that's not exactly breaking news or anything, but it's still just all about injuries for me. I know there's areas that Georgia needs to get better. Talked about the pass rush with Nolan Smith and Kirby Smart. We talked about other issues and leadership and covered the gamut, but it's really about those injuries, man.
Well, I'm going to welcome Palmer Toms in. Palmer's in. Palmer just got back from Birmingham, Alabama. Unless you
day trip, baby.
Unless you took all of your frames to Birmingham and hung them up in the Marriott Hotel, which would also be very committed to the brand. Let's hear from Nolan Smith. I think what he addressed about Georgia's sack totals and the way that Georgia's affecting the quarterback. It's not great by any means, but it hasn't hurt the Dogs so far. Here's what Nolan Smith had to say about it.
We just keep working every day. Eventually it's going to be that time when, some people are really going to try to take those deep shots and really go downfield. And we're just going to be prepared for when our numbers call. We just keep working week in and week out, just trying to affect the quarterback. If we can't sack them, then affect them. If you can't affect them, then we don't need to be out there. So we can't really get frustrated. We just got to keep working. I know that's what me and Bill harp on. We try to get sacks, but if we can't get sacks, then let's affect them. Get our hands up, make them feel like the pocket is really condensed, feel like we've been breathing on them all night. And I also think that affects a quarterback a little bit more than sacks.
I know that was a long soundbite that I played there, but I thought it was important context from Nolan. We've seen Georgia struggle with sack totals in years past, guys. And obviously that wasn't a problem for Georgia last year. It almost could be a stat that you point to and say this is what helped Georgia get over the top and win the national championship. How much are y'all concerned, or should Georgia fans be concerned about what the Dogs aren't doing in the sack column?
I'm not very much concerned at all, because I think when you look at what what Kirby has said several times, they are not in third and sack situations. Quarterbacks are getting the ball out very quickly. Nolan cited 2.7 seconds, I think he said was the average. They've only had one game where the opposing quarterback has held the ball for more than 3 seconds, and that was Auburn, where Robbie Ashford was running around and scrambling, which presents its own elements of difficulty. So I'm not too concerned about it. I also look at the guys that they have, that are playing those sack positions. Nolan has 6 tackles for loss this season, on pace for a better year than he had last year. Robert Beal is somebody that I'm not too concerned about because he came on strong during the second half of the season last season. He wasn't a fast starter there. Finished very strong. So I still think, the jury is out on this Georgia team and its ability to affect the quarterback. I also just think they're young. I mean, it's hard to rush the passer when you're this young, and you look at the guys that were doing it last year, and they were very experienced.
Yeah, without getting, trying to get too deep in the weeds here, it's not just, this guy's not right. I mean, they've got a one-on-one pass rusher there, Nolan Smith, who's doing a really good job. And, you're seeing Michael Williams do some things. You're seeing Barry Alexander do some things. I think, like I said, without getting too, in the weeds here, you've got a lot of stunt things and a lot of stunt games and blitzes that Georgia ran last year with Channing Tindall, with Nakobe Dean, with Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt, right? You saw a lot of that, and those were crisp, and those were really well executed, and somebody was coming free, and Georgia was getting a guy there, and you lost a lot. You lost a lot as far as that goes, and I'm still not worried about it, because I think Georgia does a really good job of affecting the quarterback. I mean, look back at that Auburn game, right? Georgia had 0 sacks in that Auburn game. Georgia deserved, based on how it rushed the passer in that Auburn game, 6.
And against the quarterback that held on to it the longest, but as Palmer pointed out, he's scrambling.
Right, yeah, and he was just kind of floating out of the pocket. Georgia was closing on him, so he didn't have anywhere to go with it. He'd throw it away. Threw it away several times, and I think they probably earned, a half dozen sacks in that game. I mean, as far as like what you would have, put it down as, it's just that they had a guy kind of glide out of the pocket, under pressure and throw the ball out of bounds. It's, on one hand, yeah, you do want to put teams behind the chains more often. Georgia's doing a better job of tackling for a loss than they are sacking the quarterback. So there's at least you've got that kind of working for you. But I can't bring myself to get too worked up about it when you look at kind of the way Georgia's playing defense and the fact that, hey, they've got 3 games this season with 0 sacks: Oregon, South Carolina, Auburn. And they won those games 139-20.
That's a
lot of points.
How they add up the points.
Yeah.
How about the addition of the points against Vandy the last couple of years? I've seen that infographic going around. I think we spoke about it.
17-0.
Yeah, over the past 2 seasons. That's just filthy, man. That is domination, and it does seem a little bit personal. Some questions coming in. Injuries, obviously, a big topic on the bye week. Mike Q, do you think Bell or Smith step up at the X with AD out? I think Bell already is starting to do so for sure. And Jake, you pointed it out in your X's and O's.
Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. They're interchangeable at those receiver positions. I mean, technically Bell is listed as a flanker, which is that Z receiver, and Lab McConkey's listed there, but then sometimes you see Bell and McConkey on the field at the same time. I think what really goes into this is like you really will just want to get everybody healthy. I mean, listen, there's a bye week. There's a chance to get Dylan Bell going. I pointed out X's and O's. I think I had gotten him a couple times already this year for just kind of taking his route. The other team was in zone coverage. He'd just take a route into the zone and not sit down between the zone, not sit down in the open area, and it made things a lot tougher, for Stetson Bennett. Either Stetson Bennett would have to pull the ball down or make a really tight throw or big hit or whatever. He did that against against Vanderbilt. He sat down in his zone, little crossing right over the middle, sat down, 3rd and 4, first down. So I think that's something that Georgia can work with. They're getting that experience from him, getting him going. I really like his skill set. They still really need AD back because AD is a true blue X wide receiver, split in, went on the outside, 50-50 ball, can create separation, kind of scares you a little bit. They still need him back. But I will, Arian Smith, a chance during the bye week to get him integrated back into the offense. Dylan Bell, a chance to grow up. Denila Morissette, who knows? You may have somebody really emerge out of that group coming out of the bye.
I want to highlight a couple listeners really quick. Victor Lowe is from Kuala Lumpur, and Tomahawk Dog also asking, where's the other Jake hiding? Jake Roos. I think Jake Roos may be in Kuala Lumpur doing some work from down there, but
more than likely that's where he's at.
The rooster's somewhere in the hills. He's
degenerate.
He's hiding out, but he is still with the crew. Don't worry. Is Beck the best backup in the nation? Let's jump right into that one. I'd say yeah. I look at this Georgia team and I see like the anti-quarterback room in college football, if that makes sense. It's so similar to the NFL because of the transfer portal, where if a starter goes down, I mean, look at what happened at Bama with Bryce Young going out. They were like not effective at all against Texas A&M. You've got a pretty solid backup in Carson Beck that somehow Georgia's managed to keep from entering that transfer portal.
I have a hard time saying he's the best because it's kind of one of those unanswerable questions.
Like who else is it? Right?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Jalen Milroe won a game. He's 1-0 as a starter. I know he didn't play very well, but he's 1-0 as a starter. So against an SEC team. So that's one. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I thought that what is it, Hudson Card or whatever his name is, or the kid that played for Texas kind of came in and did a pretty good job against Alabama. I mean, there's I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. I mean, right now, Robbie Asher's pretty good backup quarterback, even though he's the starter now. He had a pretty good day against Ole Miss.
I mean,
it's tough to tell. It's just tough to say. It really is because, one of the things I'll say about Beck, and listen, I've sung his praises. Like I've written about him. I wrote a column about him about kind of how, there were some unintended consequences of him getting all those number 2 reps going into last season. But I mean, you've got to kind of look at the facts here, and the facts are the dude hasn't played anything but a spent defense all season long, and he's looked great, and he's done all he's done is do what was asked of him and played the team in front of him. But every single defense that he's played this year has been either worn out or running with the 2s out there.
Yeah,
and that's just something you got to consider. And I that doesn't mean I'm not high as all get out on his potential. I wouldn't have thought coming into the year that he would have been the starter next year. I think it's probably his job to lose at this point.
Yeah, I got an answer for who has the best backup situation.
Who?
It's Michigan. Cade McNamara led Michigan to a playoff appearance last year.
Yeah, but he lost the job.
I mean, that I think to me that says more about JJ McCarthy than it does Cade McNamara. I mean, you've got incredibly talented quarterbacks at Ohio State. Penn State has a great backup in Drew Allar. Like you said, Texas, Bama. I think Georgia is in a good position with its backup quarterback. I do think that Carson Beck is proving to be a very solid backup, and the hope is that he will be a really strong starter as well. But I think it's a little jumping the gun a little bit to say that he's the best backup in the country.
I think he has the best arm. I mean, when that thing was live against Vandy late in the game, it was zipping. And again, it's a defense that you don't have to think too much about. So it's almost like you're throwing on air. You can put a lot more confidence and step up into it a lot more when you're not too worried about the D. How about Brock Vandegrift? It's bye week. Let's get into the third string quarterback. Who cares?
I haven't heard a whole lot. I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's because last year you heard some stuff about, man, this kid's kind of struggling a little bit, and then he kind of came on late in the year. If he takes a Carson Beck style trajectory, I think Georgia's got a really good player on their hands because Beck, you heard a lot of the struggles in year one, you heard a lot of the struggles in year two, and here he has kind of flipped the script in year three. This offseason is going to tell the tale, and it'll be really interesting because I've heard a lot of good things about Gunnar Stockton and his work on the scout team. So there'll be a thick competition there at that quarterback position this offseason, and I'll be interested to see if all three stick around.
Speaking of quarterbacks where you might be wondering about the talent they had coming out of high school, I know people wondered about that with Vandegrift playing in single A private school competition. Ryan Puglisi is the new Georgia quarterback commit out of Connecticut. He transferred from a smaller school in Massachusetts, but still has just surged up the recruiting board rankings. A lot of Florida fans are now calling it the Georgia bias, where a lot of people used to call it the Bama bias in these recruiting rankings. I think that's proof that Georgia's finally arrived. But I spoke with On3's director of evaluation recruiting rankings, Charles Power, about Puglisi. There's a full interview on our YouTube channel you can check out when we're done chatting here tonight. But here's a clip out from what Power really liked about Puglisi. And I think when you watch the film from his highlight footage from high school, you'll see what Power's talking about.
A really, really strong Elite 11 workout in the spring. And really by then, this rankings update for us was our first in 5 months. So a lot has happened since that time, and Ryan Puglisi is a pretty good example of just kind of that a lot has transpired since then. So had a really strong Elite 11 workout that also showed up in college camps. I think he camped at Georgia, camped at Alabama, got offers from both. I know he camped at Notre Dame. And really everything we heard from all of those college camp stops was nothing but praise. So I kind of probably prior to the season, I went back and watched a lot of his camp footage, watched the stuff from the Elite 11. And I think the first thing that jumps out with Puglisi is the arm strength is considerable. I mean, like there's moments in that Elite 11 workout where like it almost looks like there's smoke coming off the ball.
Yeah, you love to hear that if you're a Georgia fan. Obviously, I understand people still skeptical about that level of competition, but all he can do is throw it to the people that are open, and seems like getting those workouts with the big boys, Bama, Notre Dame, Georgia, helped his cause a lot.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to point out, and I'm sure I've pointed out here already, he's throwing the guys that are matched up against guys just like them. It's not one of those situations like you flip on that film and he's throwing the wide open dudes. He's throwing the guys that are in tight coverage because they're going up against players the receivers are that are a similar talent level. And I think that means something when you're playing quarterback. I don't put a whole lot of stock into him in his running around and breaking a bunch of tackles and things like that. That's harder to gauge, but I do feel good.
I would guess that's not going to translate.
Right. Yeah. But I do feel good about the way he slings the ball around. I mean, Charles Power, listen, Charles is not I've known Charles for a good little while now, and Charles is not prone to hyperbole. He's not like an excitable individual in terms of just gets fired up and starts saying stuff.
No, I almost had to check his pulse during the video. I was like, do I need to call a paramedic? Is he with us?
But he said smoke was coming off the ball.
Yeah.
So
Tomahawk Dog keeping us hot in the comments. Somebody compared Puglisi. It's Puglisi.
Puglisi.
It might be a silent G like lasagna. I don't know. Compared him to Mahomes. That is high praise. I agree. Let's calm down. But one thing Power did say, I didn't even ask him. He said this unsolicited. He would compare Puglisi to Will Levis is the
Yeah, I heard that.
comparison that he liked there. So he's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, Ryan Pesci, Joe Pesci's grandson. Sticky Bandits.
Wes, I see it in the comments, and I'll answer this one. J Martin 24, is Chaz Chambliss injured? Yes, he has been banged up, battling a hamstring issue. Kirby told us that after he didn't make the trip with the team to Missouri. Was that? Yeah, Missouri. Yeah. Didn't make the trip, and then did not dress for Auburn, I believe. But he did dress this past Saturday. But yeah, he's been battling the hamstring injury. Just saw that in the chat and figured we'd answer it.
Yep, good call. Glad you took that one away. Really quick, guys, some tough news tonight as the Dog faithful lose the GOAT, Charlie Trippy, and Roe. I don't know if you ever got to meet him leading up to the Rose Bowl or anything like that. But obviously, when you talk about Georgia football, you can't talk about it without Charlie Trippy. I met him doing like a feature before the Rose Bowl. Lauren Smith helped me set it up, which was quite a phone call, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But Charlie Trippy is a great dude, and his wife was just so gracious, let me into their home in Athens, and I'll never forget it. I mean, that was obviously such a special season for Georgia, and Trippy can hardly hear me, but he's smiling the whole time. Every question I ask, he says, beg pardon, and then he gets it, and then finally I'm able to kind of piece the story together. But you talk about some experiences, some life lived. A Georgia great, obviously, but he also served in World War II. I believe he didn't leave the field in the Rose Bowl game except for a couple plays, maybe. It was some outrageous stat where he was just all over the place and never quit. They truly don't make him like that anymore.
No,
I encourage you guys to read up on him if you haven't already.
They don't even make the parts for that one anymore.
No,
I mean, it's they don't even make replacement parts. And 100 years, man, what a life, what an accomplishment, what's something to be proud of. I'm sure his family's hurting today, but I also hope that they're able to kind of reflect and look at how proud they can be of kind of what their patriarch or dad or whatever, what he accomplished. Because I mean, that's like you said, that's a hell of a life, man.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a war veteran, one of the greatest football players in the history of a program, NFL, and what he did there. I mean, just like you said, they don't make them like that anymore. They don't even make the parts or the materials.
No, it's impressive stuff, and I'm sad that he's gone, but I can't help but smile thinking about everything he did as a Dog. And I think he was on the sidelines for a game a few years ago with his wife and brought the house down. So really cool stuff from a Georgia legend. There's really no transition here, but Uncle Glenn's brought us into the fray. Anyone missing Jermaine Burton yet? I don't think anybody is on the Georgia side of things. That's allegedly, Jake. Allegedly.
I saw it.
Hey, it was more of a
of a
but that's a tough deal. That's a really tough deal right there. From top to bottom.
Rick James.
I mean, what is going on with Bama? Do y'all think that's a sign of true undisciplined football coming out, or is it just one guy?
Well,
I'll say it's one guy. I mean, and I don't
know, man. 17 penalties for 130 yards right before it. And
look, I think that you can look at that a lot of different ways. I don't think that the off-field incident that we're talking about here says I don't think that translates.
It was technically on the field.
You're right. Technically was on the field.
Between the lines.
Maybe.
Corner of the end zone.
Corner of the end zone.
It was in the checkerboards.
Let's go check the tape. No, but I don't think that I do think that there is maybe a little bit of an undisciplined nature to that. They certainly have shown that. It's absolutely an undisciplined nature to incident that we're talking about here. They've shown an undisciplined nature between the lines during the game. I don't think that there's a correlation between the two of them, is what I'm saying.
I'll accept that. I'll accept that. All right. This is a Georgia show. This is the Georgia show, actually. And a lot of people are curious what actually happens for the Dogs. What does Georgia do on bye weeks? Kirby Smart actually, I don't know if it's admitted, but kind of addressed something I was a little surprised to hear, because I thought it was just all about, let's focus on the team. We'll worry about Florida later. But Kirby was pretty transparent. They're working on everybody.
Try to work on all of them. We don't have enough time. We only got 3 days, so we assign out to the staff every team, and then they give a presentation to the rest of the staff on that team, what they might be doing new from this summer and anything new they're doing this year that we might need to prepare for. That may be things an oddity or it's really different. Then we work on it today and tomorrow, and then we start towards Florida on Thursday.
So, guys, I've had a couple of people ask me. I don't know who originally reported it. I'll give the attribution when I remember, when I see it. But there was some talk earlier on in the season that Georgia was almost treating Tennessee's offense the way that they used to treat Georgia Tech's, and they were doing a little bit of installation here and there throughout the season. I'm sick to my stomach that we haven't spent more time talking about Florida. Because it seems like that's what we should be doing this week of the season. But because Kirby brought it up there, how much is Georgia kind of chipping away and taking a look at Tennessee and maybe even Mississippi State because of how quick they are too on offense?
Yeah, I'll take a first crack at this one, Wes, because you mentioned the earlier work that Georgia had done on Tennessee. That kind of came out of a report where we were standing outside of practice and you could overhear Kirby saying, Tennessee's going fast. Tennessee's going fast. Obviously, they were working some tempo stuff. This was in the preseason. So like you said, like Georgia Tech there, where they do spend a little bit of time on that, I would imagine that they clearly did spend some time on it in the preseason. And I would imagine that they have continued to spend time on that because that's something that every team can do. Now, Tennessee does it to an extreme. What Mississippi State does is certainly to an extreme. I think that any work on the passing game and your pass defense is certainly going to pay off in both those games because that is how those offenses like to attack. But you can't just rely on your pass defense against Tennessee because again, I mentioned it earlier this week. I talked to Clint Lamb from our Bama site, and he talked about how Tennessee created really good matchups defensively, for really good matchups for their offense and really difficult matchups for the Bama defense. When they would get Bama substituting on the field, in a pass defense package, they would run the ball. And say they had a third and long, third and medium, they would run the ball knowing that they were going to go for it on fourth down and go tempo against that pass package, but run the ball against that. Same thing, vice versa with a run heavy package, they would pass the ball and then go tempo to, keep that advantage. So I do think that the tempo is something that they've probably worked for a while now, the Tennessee tempo. They're certainly working the passing game, but I don't think that they're overlooking Florida. Kirby said that, he said that it's Georgia, Florida. You don't have to worry about that. It's obviously a big game. Everybody's talking about it. Georgia, Tennessee, but Georgia, Florida is just as big of a game in this area of the country, in this state for this program. You don't have to worry about them overlooking the Gators.
I want to say this. So Tennessee is not so unique that you've got to kind of spend a practice a week or a period a week working on them. There are a lot of things applicable in Tennessee's offense. It's not even the pace that makes them so unique. It's the splits. If you watch Tennessee, you see them line up with doubles, twins to the left, twins to the right, and every single wide receiver is outside the numbers. And you just don't see that a whole lot because they want to use the space coming back in towards the field, whereas so many other teams want to use the space going out towards the sideline. They make you defend, 53 yards from the snap, whereas other teams make you chase kind of out to the perimeter, and there's value in doing both. But you talk about the pace. I mean, Georgia's obviously they're working on 2-minute offense, 2-minute defense every week. That's something that they get a little bit of practice with, and I'm sure they spend this bye week. I'm sure they'll spend some of this bye week getting some extra conditioning in. That way that they kind of are able to hold up to that. I want to say last year that Georgia did a really good job against Tennessee, kind of holding up conditioning wise, and then I almost think they let their foot off the gas a little bit. Ate a big Thanksgiving dinner a couple weeks later. And then, kind of showed up a little bit out of shape there in the SEC championship game, and Alabama used pace and kind of got after them a little bit. But I think Georgia will be ready. And I think they're going to be ready for Florida too. We're going to talk more about Florida when it's Florida week, but it ain't Florida week yet.
That's right, Jake. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the Breaking Tea scroll at the bottom. We pitch it every week, and it's because we love the work that this company does. The link to Breaking Tea for your Georgia T-shirt needs in the episode description, whether you're listening on the podcast options that we have available for you or on YouTube. Question about that Georgia defense, fellas. John Stinchcomb apparently is singing the praises of Warren Brinson, and I know you have too, Jake and Paul.
Yep. I think I've been talking to Palmer about Warren Brinson for about 3 games from the press box now. He's coming on. He's really coming on. And I heard John Stinch coming on Brandon Adams' show. Obviously good friends with BA, and I was listening to that show here a couple of days ago, and I heard John on there.
We actually listen to our competitors from time to time. It's true.
Yeah. Well, I love the guy. I mean, I'll murder somebody for Brandon Adams.
BA is a good fella.
Yeah, I'll put a thumb in somebody's eye for Brandon Adams. But yeah, I heard John Stinchcomb say that, and my ears kind of perked up. I was like, I was telling Palmer I was in here doing this freshman report thing. I was in here with highlighters and everything. My wife probably thought I was like trying to write a sermon or something. But I was in here messing with all that, and I was listening to John Stinchcomb when he heard that, and I kind of popped up, had a little highlighter top in my mouth, and I'm sure I kind of looked like one of those little mongoose that we have on the opening the show.
You just looked like a ball coach, Jake.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I mean, Warren Brinson's playing really good football. And guys, I think that injury is one we haven't talked about, but he's been limited right now. He's only playing, Palmer, the stats better than I do, probably anywhere from 12 to 15 snaps a game right now. And I think if they get him healthy, you're maybe looking at more like 20 to 25, and that may be a little bit more production that Georgia could use there.
Yeah, he played this past Saturday against Vanderbilt. He played, drumroll please, 14 snaps.
Yeah.
I know he played 16 against Missouri because I was so impressed that he had 4 tackles in 16 snaps. Against Missouri there, against Auburn. And Missouri was the first time that we heard about the injury. Auburn, he played 32 snaps. So
oh, wow. So he did play a lot against Auburn.
Played a lot against Auburn. Certainly a good sign of him getting healthier.
Yeah, for sure.
Mean Mug and Mutt shouting out Bear Alexander as well. Jake, you had a pretty insightful piece on all the freshmen that have burned their red shirts, which was interesting to see. A lot of young talent getting in there, and a lot of young talent that could still have an extra season.
18 guys. 18 guys are still eligible to take a red shirt if they need it. There are a couple right on the bubble. There's a list in here somewhere. That sermon I wrote. Sorry. There's a list right here. You got Christian Miller and Cole Spear are at 4 games, and then EJ Lightsey's at 3 games, and then you've got literally 16 guys from what it looks like, 15 guys that have played 2 games or less. I would imagine those guys are headed for red shirts.
96 is now wearing 44.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
you hear
dude,
that?
That's big on Facebook. That is huge, like just a meme. Like people have started just typing it out and posting it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it cracks me up because I mean, I'm so used to it. Like you just hear it after every touchdown.
You never know what's going to stick with people. Like it's just those little quirky moments that you think mean nothing in the ball game. Guys, we before we chop some wood here, I want to shout out our $1 for 1 year premium promotion that's still going on. Even though it's been the bye week, guys, you're keeping the premium stuff going. I'm going to pull up and see what we have on DawgsHQ's homepage right now. It's worth your buck. I promise. It's worth your George Washington. We've got your midseason superlatives on offense, Palmer. Who's one guy? One guy. Give us a little tease.
Jake contributed to that as well. He's got our midseason superlatives for defense covered tomorrow. You get input from both him and I in there. One player that we both agreed on. So we voted on 5 awards: MVP, and this goes for both sides of the ball. MVP, top freshman, best new starter, biggest surprise, most improved.
Okay.
And I'll give away
class clown, best smile.
Yeah. Class clown goes to Roos. Best smile.
Oh, you're doing our staff too?
Yeah, sure. I'll give away our biggest surprise here, because that was one that Jake and I agreed on. And that would be Xavier Truss. Somebody that has, like Jake pointed out here, maybe surprised some of us when he won the starting job at left guard. Certainly surprising us to continue to hold on to it and continue to be a big part of that offensive line, proving to be somebody that, when Georgia does rotate, they're rotating on the right side. They look at Tate Ratledge and Warren McClendon there. Xavier Truss is playing a ton of snaps for Georgia, and that has been a big surprise for us.
Yeah, I remember a story from the spring, I think, when they were asking Truss about his lobster rolls that he misses from back home. Wasn't that him?
Yep.
Yeah.
And now he's not just talking about lobster rolls. He's actually playing some real ball.
I miss his lobster rolls. I'd love to have a lobster roll right now.
He's had quite a few. He's a big boy. But obviously our premium recruiting story is also a big hit, as Jake Roos has an update from Kelton Smith and a 2024 4-star safety.
I believe Georgia is in the mix for a cornerback. Chris Peel, is that his name?
Key and Peel. That's who it is.
Yeah, Chris Peel, right, Palmer? Have I got the name right?
It's Chris.
Yeah, Chris. He's going to be deciding here on October the 23rd. I believe Georgia is favored per the old RPM machine. So, Georgia could be getting them a very, very important, commitment here in the next few days as well. So
96.4 according to the RPM. Chris Peel, number 75 number 75 player in the country, number 8 cornerback, number 4 player in the North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, according to On3's rankings. Georgia doing a pretty good job recruiting in North Carolina. They've also got Jamal Jarrett.
Yeah, they like those North Carolina.
And of course, Jalen Walker came from there. Zamir White came from North Carolina, and big old 99 Jordan Davis.
Yeah. I say we just go for another hour and we yell at each other about who's the better Georgia player from North Carolina, Todd Gurley or Jordan Davis.
I would go JD.
Can't do it. Todd Gurley staying here, man.
Todd
Gurley. Gurley is the best Georgia player I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes.
Me and my friends still call him Tud.
Call him what?
We still call him Tud.
Tud.
There's that Twitter
from those Mason Hutson.
The noodle arm.
Yeah. Give me back my hair.
Tomahawk Tug.
This is the worst.
TODF. Todd. It looks like a line of letters you'd see at the eye doctor.
Yeah.
All right, let's chop some wood. We're just giving you a hard time, Tomahawk Dog. Let's chop some wood. I didn't even ask you guys ahead of time, so I might be putting you on the spot. So I'll start. I'm going to chop some wood about the fact I will bring some Florida flavor to this show. Anthony Richardson landed the first ever Florida NIL deal with Gatorade. And this is a Georgia show. That's a Florida problem. So that's on them. But how do you mess that up? How do you wait that long?
Yeah, I was
Gatorade?
very surprised by that.
What are you doing? So that's
Who
what I'm
owns
chopping wood
Gatorade?
about. Someone's dropping the ball there, either on Florida side with their NIL collective. I don't know what their collective situation is, or on Gatorade side. But that really surprised me today. And I think the only other NIL deal they're potentially missing out on is Tom's, that shoe company that donates all those shoes to people.
Yeah.
Because Florida people just love to throw shoes in anyone's direction. So I thought that was a miss too. But the Gatorade,
Crocs are easier to get off your feet and throw. So
there you go. See, why aren't we could be running all these collectives.
Hey, Tom should sponsor this show. I mean, we got a Tom's, different spelling, but
I'll let you work on that, Palmer.
Well, I'm going to bring
that one.
Jake. I don't know if you were planning to go ahead next, but I'm going to bring some Florida flair as well.
Oh,
Mike
good,
White.
because I was going to talk about Georgia men's basketball.
Well, too bad. I'm taking it. Mike White, your Georgia men's basketball coach from Florida, coming from Florida, first year at Georgia. Heard from him today, as well as Cario Oquendo and Braylon Bridges at SEC Tip-Off 23. Put up a story today that talks about just about what Mike White was like at Florida, according to some of his SEC coaching colleagues. You heard from Rick Barnes, heard from John Calipari,
Coach Cal.
Heard from a Florida player himself, Colin Castleton, who played for White at Florida, first team All SEC selection this year. No Georgia players on the first team or second team.
Well, they're about to shock the world.
Picked 13th in the league out of 14. Shout out South Carolina and Lamont Paris, new coach there. But yeah, I mean, heard a lot of content from today, a lot of content to come from today. Georgia basketball, chopping wood.
Good stuff, Palmer.
Wes, I just want to know, is your belly okay? Because there's two very prominent Pepto ads right there on your screen there.
Yeah, they heard me. They heard me. They're always listening. They're
it's
always
so creepy.
listening.
It is so creepy. I hate it. All right, chopping wood. All right, I want to get kind of serious here for a second.
Good.
And just talk about Georgia and kind of where things go from here. Okay, because it's more than just Tennessee. It's more than just Florida and Tennessee. It's Kentucky. It's Mississippi State. Nobody cares about Georgia Tech. So Georgia's going to be on the road, like away from home. So will we. All right. And listen, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I'm a little bit excited about Jacksonville. And then I'm really dreading Starkville just because and that's mean to do because I've never been. But we're
not even.
Oh, you've never been? All right,
never been.
Jake.
We're not even staying in Starkville, Jake.
The stadium for Starkville, there's like a fraternity house on like a road, and then you just go down this little road, and the stadium's just right there in the middle of all these pine trees. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen from an SEC stadium, anyway.
I'll get to check one off. I'll get to check a stadium off that I've never been to, which is cool. We're staying in Tuscaloosa, which is a little over an hour away, and Alabama's out of town that weekend, so hotels are, nice and affordable.
Yeah.
So we get to stay at a nice one. But then you got to go to Kentucky, and that's 3 formidable road trips in 4 weeks, and the one game you get to play at home, you got to play Tennessee. It's buckle up time as a Georgia fan, and if I might suggest a place to be, DawgsHQ. Come see us. Come over to site, $1 for a whole year. We're gonna have you covered throughout the whole thing, but it's crunch time for Georgia. This is as challenging. And listen, this is as challenging of a slate as I've seen for Georgia at this point in the year in a very long time. It could change. Like Georgia could beat the socks off Florida. Tennessee could lose to Kentucky. Kentucky could drop one after that. It could just lose all its luster, but I doubt it.
Do y'all have a gut feeling about the squad moving forward? Because by the time we talk again, I think we'll be talking a lot more about the Gators. Do you have a big picture, kind of a pulse on what you expect from the Dogs, even with that tough stretch?
No, I mean, I just expect them to, to get some guys back, to get better defensively than they have been, to kind of shore up some areas and to, I mean, I would still pick them to win all 5 of those games. Obviously, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, like Jake said there, we knew this schedule, when we were picking preseason and looking at schedules and records and all that kind of prediction stuff. We knew this was going to be tough. Everyone circled this stretch of games here, and it's here. If Georgia's going, we said it from the start. If Georgia was going to lose a game, it was going to be in this 4-game stretch. Yes, we are overlooking Georgia Tech, not including them in that stretch. I still think that they could lose a game. I'm not saying that they will lose a game. And like Jake, I predicted them to go 12-0. So, knew this schedule was going to shake out the way that it did, in terms of where Georgia was going, being on the road 3 out of the 4 weeks, knew that was going to be tough. Don't think that we knew just how good Tennessee was going to be, just how much of a threat Mississippi State was going to be. We did know that Kentucky was going to be strong. Maybe we expected a little bit more from Florida, but I don't know that we did expect all that much.
Well, Matt Stinchcomb certainly didn't. I don't know if y'all saw his preseason prediction on the Gators. I think he predicted them to win 3 total games.
No. Well, they're at 3, so no, they're at 4. They're at 4.
Yeah, they've cleared the benchmark.
So,
yeah, I hear you guys. I don't know that I necessarily looked at the Mississippi State component, and I didn't think Tennessee was going to be this electric.
You hated Tennessee coming into the season, Wes.
I didn't hate.
You loved Kentucky and you hated Tennessee.
No, I don't know if you were on the show when I talked to Jake about this or not. I can't remember because we did so many over the weekend, but I still think that Kentucky could be a tougher game for Georgia just because of the road atmosphere and because I believe that they are a little bit more physical just across the board, just because that's how they've recruited. No one believes me on that, but I mean, look at what they did to Mississippi State. They can bring their lunch too. And once that crowd gets going, takes a little bit, but they got a lot of brown liquor in those cups and they can tune in with the best of them. So yeah, I didn't hate Tennessee, but I did believe that Kentucky would be the bigger test just because of the home versus road situation. But I've thought a lot about Stetson Bennett lately, guys, and I don't want to speak for him. I don't want to assume anything, but he has 5 guaranteed Georgia football games left in his career, and he didn't come back to let this thing slip away. And I think we started to see him lock in against Vandy. Yes, get your jokes in. But I want to think, for Stetson's sake, that he's used this week to dial in, and I believe you're going to see a much better mailman coming down the stretch. And I think a lot of that would have to do with AD Mitchell getting healthy, but it also has a lot to do with the guys who filled in for AD getting better and getting more comfortable with Stetson. So I really expect Stetson to be a improved quarterback on the second half of the season. If there's a superlative for that, I'd go ahead and pencil him in tentatively for the most improved.
Yeah, just get healthy. Just get that shoulder right. He was. I went back and watched the game. I saw him flexing a little bit in the Vanderbilt game, but get the shoulder right, get the back right. Make sure the back's okay, and get going.
All right, y'all. We're done. Jake's ready to go to bed. I think Palmer is.
I'm
too.
ready to go to bed. I was up at 4:30 to go to Birmingham.
Oh,
I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah. Well, y'all can stay up if you're watching this, or if you just tuned in late, catch the replay. It always replays right after we hit stop on this thing. So hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, hit follow on the podcast channels, and stay in touch with us. As I believe it was it Tomahawk Dog? Look, we love BA too, but Tomahawk Dog is laughing with the best of us here at DawgsHQ. Appreciate y'all. Enjoy the bye week. Go pick some apples or something. Take a breather. Don't get all worked up about football. You get enough of that from the Dogs. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll catch you next time.